Have you ever wondered what would happen if the girl you had a love marriage with, the one you serve bed tea to every morning, the one who showers you with affection over the smallest things at home, suddenly stood before you one day as the most ruthless, strict, and no-nonsense CEO of your company? And the real fun begins when she believes her husband is just a useless, weak, ordinary employee. Eager to build his career, she starts making him toil like a beast of burden at the office. But my darling wife was completely oblivious to the biggest truth of all, that I alone bought the entire company and gifted it to her. Yes, my friends, I am the biggest anonymous billionaire of the underworld and the corporate market. But for my wife's happiness, I have been playing the part of an ordinary employee. It was exactly 7 a.m. The sunlight streaming through the window fell directly onto my face. I was about to turn over in my sleep when I felt soft fingers running through my hair. I slowly opened my eyes. Standing in front of me was my wife, Ria. Her face looked as innocent and beautiful as ever, but there was a strange seriousness in her eyes today. Pulling back her fingers from my hair, she spoke with a touch of authority. Ved, get up. Today, I am taking a new step into the corporate world. It's my first day as the CEO of a major company. I don't want you to be late for the office because of me. Come on, get ready quickly. I took a deep breath, smiled sleepily, and reached my hand out toward her. Ria, you've become the CEO of a massive company now. But I'm still that same old, simple marketing intern, right? Even if I arrive a little late, who would really care? Ria's eyebrows snapped together. In an instant, her innocent face transformed into that of a strict boss. Lightly hitting my chest, she said, "It makes a world of difference, Ved. Within the four walls of this house, you are my husband whom I love immensely. But the moment we enter that office building, I am your boss and you are my subordinate. If you show any carelessness there, I will reprimand you in front of the entire department. Do you understand or not?" Inside, I was laughing out loud. My innocent Ria thought her luck had suddenly turned around. How could she know that last week, when the arrogant boss of her old company was tormenting her over every little thing, my anger had hit the roof? In a single secret call, I paid 500 crore rupees in cash and bought out the entire multinational corporation. I kicked her old boss out and placed Ria on the throne as the absolute CEO, ensuring no random nobody could ever order my wife around again. But I kept this a secret from everyone. I wanted Ria to believe that this was the fruit of her own hard work. At exactly 9:30 a.m., a black luxury vehicle pulled up in front of the poshest corporate tower in BKC. As soon as Ria stepped out of the car, a pin-drop silence enveloped the entire building lobby. The new CEO had arrived. Ria wore an ultra-stylish black business suit, dark sunglasses over her eyes, and a line of 10 personal assistants walking behind her with their hands folded. Her gait and her aura were so powerful that every manager standing there straightened up in sheer terror. Without stopping, Ria walked straight into our marketing department. She slowly took off her sunglasses, and her sharp, piercing gaze locked directly onto my seat. Faking terror, I was already hiding my face behind a file. Ria walked up to my desk. She slammed a heavy file onto my table with force, the sound of her high heels echoing across the entire floor. In a cold voice, she said, "So, you are Mr. Ved? I checked your report from last month. You are a very lazy and careless employee. If you want to save your job at this company, change this habit of yours. This file contains the sales data for the next 3 days. I want its complete analysis in my cabin by 5 p.m. today. If you are even a minute late, be prepared for overtime." The moment Ria left, the people in the department looked at me with such pity, as if my final hour had come. Our manager, Sharma, rushed over to me and whispered, "Son, you're doomed. This new CEO is a walking wildfire. Looks like your resignation letter will be in your hands by tomorrow morning." With a fake look of despair, I replied, "Yes, Sharma ji, just my rotten luck. I'll be pushed to my absolute limits by this evening." However, as soon as Ria stepped inside her glass cabin, the personal phone in my pocket vibrated. When I turned on the screen, there was a secret text from Ria. "Don't be mad, my Shona. That was just a show in front of everyone so no one suspects our relationship. But yes, I need the work completed by 5 o'clock, otherwise, you're only getting boiled pumpkin for dinner tonight." With a deep smile, I texted back, "Yes, my dictator boss." At exactly 4:55 p.m., I completed the file and reached the outside of Ria's cabin. Just as I was about to reach out and open the door, I heard sharp, angry voices coming from inside. I looked through the transparent glass. Standing inside the cabin were two of the company's highly arrogant investors. One obese investor slammed his hand hard against Ria's table and shouted, "Ria ji, just because you got the CEO chair doesn't mean you can rule over us. Don't forget your place. If we pull our 100 crore investment out of this company right this second, your company will be out on the streets by tomorrow morning. Sign this contract we brought quietly without asking questions, or we will erase you from the corporate market." Ria's face had gone pale with fear. Tears welled up in her eyes, though she tried desperately to hide them. She was completely helpless and alone before those two powerful corporate sharks. Standing outside the cabin, I, Ved, witnessed everything. In a split second, the innocent look of a common employee vanished from my face. The fire of a dangerous, ruthless billionaire ignited in my eyes. How dare they? Someone was standing in front of my wife, a woman for whom my heart trembles if even a single thorn pricks her foot, making her cry and threatening her? How dare they? Without knocking, I threw the cabin door open and walked right in. Ria looked at me and said in a trembling, soft voice, "Ved, go outside right now. This is a high-level meeting, there is no place for an intern here." But I ignored her words. My expression was deadpan. I walked forward with absolute calmness and stood directly in front of the two investors. The heavy-set investor snarled at me like a wolf, "Hey kid. Who the hell are you to barge in? How dare you come inside without permission? Get out quietly, or you'll lose your job this very instant." In a cold, incredibly dangerous voice, I pulled my phone out of my pocket. There was such power in my tone that the temperature of the room instantly dropped. Looking straight into the investor's eyes, I said, "My job will go later, sir, but if you two don't fold your hands and apologize to my wife, the CEO of this company, within the next 2 seconds, your entire business empire will crash straight from the sky to the ground." The two investors looked at each other and burst into hysterical laughter. "Ha ha ha. Have you gone mad? A measly intern is going to stop our 100 crore investment? What is your status anyway?" I pressed a speed dial button on my phone. It rang just once before my personal international secretary answered on the other end with absolute reverence, "Yes, Mr. Chairman? What are your orders?" Staring down the two investors, I spoke in an incredibly grave voice, "The two investors from our city who are currently in the CEO's cabin, crash all of their market capital and shares immediately. Buy out their entire company at half price and reduce them to the streets. Blacklist them from the global market right now." Standing near the door, the investors were still laughing when suddenly, the emergency alert alarms on both of their phones began blaring one after another. The color drained from their faces, and their expensive phones slipped from their hands, crashing onto the floor. The two arrogant investors dropped their expensive phones right onto the floor. The color drained from their faces so utterly it looked as if every last drop of blood had been drained from their bodies. Through the screen of the heavy-set investor's fallen phone, his stockbroker's panicked voice could still be heard screaming, "Sir! Sir, can you hear me? Within just 10 seconds, our company's shares have plummeted by 80%. An unknown global syndicate has executed a hostile takeover of our corporation. We are ruined, sir, we are completely out on the streets." Trembling violently, the heavy-set investor raised his head to look at me. The pride of a corporate shark was gone from his eyes, replaced entirely by the sheer, unadulterated terror of a trapped animal. He could not comprehend how a lowly marketing intern had reduced his 1,000 crore empire to dust with a single phone call. Collapsing to his knees on the floor, he crawled forward, grabbed my shoes, and wept. "Mr. Ved? I was blind. Please forgive me. I had no idea you were the master of that anonymous global syndicate. I beg of you, please give me my business back." I kicked his hands off my shoe and spoke in a cold, stone-like voice, "What did I tell you? My job would go later, but your empire would fall first. And who were you supposed to apologize to?" The heavy-set investor immediately dragged himself on his knees toward Ria. Folding his hands, he rubbed his forehead against the floor and wailed, "Madam CEO. Ria ji, please forgive me. I am a mere insect for attempting to measure your worth. Please tell your powerful husband to spare me." Ria stood completely frozen. Her eyes were wide with sheer disbelief. She kept darting her gaze between the sobbing billionaire on the floor and her supposedly simple, unassuming husband. She had only ever seen me building Excel sheets on my laptop and getting scolded by management. She couldn't wrap her head around what was happening. I signaled the security guards. They marched in, grabbed both weeping investors by their collars, and threw them out of the cabin like trash. The moment the cabin door shut, a heavy silence descended upon the room. I slowly turned toward Ria. The aura of the ruthless billionaire vanished instantly, replaced once more by my innocent intern facade. Ria slowly stepped away from her CEO chair. She walked up to me, looked deep into my eyes, and asked in a trembling voice, "Ved, what was all that? Why were those massive investors begging at your feet? Who did you order on that phone call? Ved, who are you, really?" I paused for a moment. If I wanted to, I could tell her the absolute truth right now, that I am the world's most powerful hidden billionaire, and that I bought this entire company for her. But I knew Ria was a fiercely independent, self-made woman. If she found out that her prestigious CEO title was not the result of her hard work but rather a gift of charity from me, it would shatter her spirit. Scratching the back of my head, I forced a sheepish, innocent laugh. "Oh, come on, Ria. You got scared of them too? One of my childhood friends works as a voice artist at a prank call center. I just called him to scare those guys." Ria frowned in confusion. "Then how did their shares crash? How was their entire company ruined?" Right at that moment, the cabin door opened again. The company's chief HR director stood there holding a tablet, looking visibly shaken. He bowed deeply to Ria and said, "Madam CEO, we have major news. Our company's actual anonymous chairman, the one who always stays behind the scenes, just reviewed the CCTV footage of the CEO cabin. The moment Chairman Sir saw those two investors disrespecting you, he personally ordered their entire empire to be crashed out of pure fury. You no longer have to worry about them. Hearing this, Ria let out a long sigh of relief. Inside, I was smirking. That anonymous chairman was none other than me, and I had texted the chief HR just moments ago, instructing him to deliver this exact script to safeguard my secret. The moment the HR director left, Ria shot me an annoyed glare. Stepping forward, she pinched my ear and scolded me, "You are such an idiot, Ved. If Chairman Sir hadn't ruined them today, those arrogant investors would have destroyed your life. Why did you, a mere intern, feel the need to pick a fight with such powerful people?" I gently took both of her hands into mine, looked straight into her eyes, and said in a grounded, serious tone, "It was necessary, Ria. No force in this world, no matter how great, will ever make my wife cry while I stand by. If anyone tries, I will stand before them like an unmovable mountain. I cannot bear to see you weep." My words completely melted Ria's defenses. Her strict CEO persona crumbled, and she threw her arms around me, holding me tightly. Her voice cracked slightly with emotion as she rested her head against my chest. "You are truly strange, Ved. You're an intern at the office, but you carry yourself like a mafia don. I love you, my innocent intern." I smiled, gently stroking her hair. My secret was safe. For now. But our peace and happiness were not destined to last long. The next morning, when Ria and I arrived at the office, a massive, incredibly expensive bouquet of 500 red roses was sitting right outside her cabin. And sitting comfortably in the CEO's chair was a tall, sharply suited, and exceptionally handsome man. The moment Ria saw him, she gasped in shock, "Siddharth, sir. You're here." Siddharth, Ria's most senior college alumnus and currently an incredibly arrogant billionaire in his own right, stood up from her chair. He stepped forward, picked up Ria's hand, and kissed it. "Ria, you are as breathtaking as ever," Siddharth said smoothly. "I heard you became the CEO of this insignificant little company. Don't waste your talents here. Come join me as a partner in my multi-billion-dollar empire. And besides, your useless husband, Ved, is just a pathetic intern in this office, isn't he? Leave him to rot in his low status, and come to me." I stood by the doorway. Hearing Siddharth's words, my hands clenched into fists so violently that my knuckles turned white, the sheer pressure nearly breaking the skin. The innocence of the ordinary intern was vanishing once again, replaced by the shadow of the ruthless chairman who leaves nothing of his enemies behind. The moment Siddharth kissed Ria's hand and uttered those vile words about me, the temperature in the cabin instantly plummeted to sub-zero. Ria yanked her hand back in a flash, her face flaring with anger. "Siddharth, sir. Just because you were my college senior does not give you the right to come into my cabin and insult my husband. Ved is my husband, and I love him dearly. You leave this office right this instant." Siddharth burst into a cynical laugh, glancing down at his luxury watch. "Ria, you are still that same naive girl. Love doesn't pay the bills. What kind of future do you have with a measly intern? At best, he might become a low-level manager someday, that is his absolute ceiling. You need a real billionaire like me, someone who can give you the entire world." I stood by the door, completely silent. My expression remained entirely deadpan, but a dangerous storm had ignited in my eyes. I slowly stepped inside the cabin, pulling my usual innocent mask back onto my face. "Ria, I need you to sign this file," I said smoothly. Then, turning my eyes to him, I added, "And sir, you seem unfamiliar with the rules of this office. Entering the CEO's cabin without an appointment is strictly forbidden." Siddharth measured me from head to toe, his eyes lingering disdainfully on my ID badge. "Oh, so you're the lucky loser? Look here, boy, I am Siddharth, the owner of Siddharth Empires. I don't need an appointment for anyone. If I wanted to, I could buy this entire company within the next 2 hours and throw both you and your wife out on the streets." I looked directly into his eyes, a faint, cold smile playing on my lips. For a fleeting second, looking into my freezing gaze sent an unnatural chill straight down Siddharth's spine, but he quickly forced his arrogance back up. "Sir, it's good to dream big," I murmured. "But sometimes, dreaming too big comes with a price too heavy to pay." Furious, Siddharth snapped his head toward Ria. "Ria, teach your insolent husband some manners, or I will personally ensure all your company's contracts are terminated today. I have deep connections with international investors, I can crush your business into the ground." Anxiety flashed across Ria's face, but before she could utter a single word, I slipped my hand into my pocket and pressed a secret fingerprint pattern on my phone. The gesture instantly triggered my personal security details and global corporate enforcement cells. I fired off a single silent text, "Pull up everything on Siddharth Empires and terminate their biggest active deal within the next 5 minutes. Permanently." Siddharth sneered, picking up his briefcase. "I'm leaving, Ria. But mark my words, by tomorrow morning, you will come crying to me when you have a total of 0 clients left." The exact moment Siddharth reached the cabin door, his phone violently erupted with 3 consecutive video call alerts. He answered aggressively, barking into the receiver, "What is it?" "I'm in a meeting." The panicked, weeping voice of his company's chief financial officer, CFO, wailed through the line. Sir, a catastrophe has occurred. The 2,000 crore megaproject we were about to sign in New York, they just cancelled the contract. They said orders came directly from the absolute top level that maintaining any corporate ties with our company is equivalent to suicide. Siddharth's mind went completely blank. What absolute garbage are you talking about? That was our flagship project. Before he could process the blow, his second line flashed. This time, it was the director of his private offshore bank. Mr. Siddharth, we regret to inform you. All your corporate accounts and credit lines have been frozen with immediate effect under suspicion of market manipulation. You cannot transfer a single rupee until further notice. The phone nearly slipped from Siddharth's hand. The color drained from his face completely, and his breathing turned ragged. He stood rooted to the spot, trembling violently. He couldn't comprehend how, in a matter of barely 2 minutes, his entire multi-billion-dollar empire had collapsed like a house of cards. Riya watched the sudden breakdown in sheer bewilderment. Siddharth sir, what happened? Is everything all right? She asked, her voice laced with concern. Siddharth stared blankly at his phone screen, where an anonymous email had just flashed open. The message contained only a single, chilling line. You reached for a place that has the power to erase your very existence. This was merely a glimpse. If you want to survive, bow before the intern. Siddharth slowly raised his head and locked eyes with me where I stood by the door. I was calmly reviewing a file, but my gaze was pinned directly on him. The arrogant billionaire finally understood. This seemingly useless intern was no ordinary man. He was the anonymous chairman himself, the absolute god of the country's corporate world. Every ounce of Siddharth's pride shattered into dust. He dragged his heavy steps toward me, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Right in front of Riya, he folded his hands before me and spoke in a completely broken, hushed whisper. Vived, please forgive me. I made a massive mistake. I forgot my place. Please, do not destroy me entirely. Riya shocked out of her seat, standing up instantly. She could not believe her own eyes. The wealthy prince who was just calling her husband a useless loser was now weeping with folded hands at his feet. I placed a firm hand on Siddharth's shoulder, pulling him in close, and whispered into his ear so softly that only he could hear, if I ever see you anywhere near my wife again, your name will be wiped off the face of this earth by tomorrow morning. Now get the hell out of here. Siddharth nodded frantically, turning around and sprinting out of the cabin as if a demon were chasing him. The heavy silence returned to the room. Riya walked up to me, grabbing my hand tightly, her eyes overflowing with a million questions. She looked at me, her voice dropping into an intensely serious tone. Ved, enough is enough. Yesterday it was those investors weeping, and today a billionaire like Siddharth is begging at your feet. This cannot be a coincidence. You are hiding something massive from me. Tell me the truth. Who are you, really? The intensity in Riya's eyes left no room for doubt. My usual excuses as a common intern weren't going to cut it today. Her sharp gaze felt as though it was piercing right through my mind. Outside the transparent glass of the cabin, the entire office staff was turning to stare at us. I took a deep breath, locked the cabin door from the inside, and stepped close to Riya, lowering my voice. Riya, you're absolutely right. The time has come for me to stop hiding my biggest secret from you. I'm not just a regular intern who came here to do a mundane job. Riya caught her breath, asking in sheer astonishment, then who are you really, Ved? Looking directly into her eyes, I crafted a flawless deception. Riya, I am the most trusted personal shadow assistant and right-hand man to this company's anonymous chairman. When Chairman Sir witnessed your talent at your previous company, he decided to make you the CEO here. But he knew the old wolves of the corporate market wouldn't let you breathe easily. That's why he placed me here as an intern to watch over you, keep an eye on your enemies, and destroy them from behind the scenes. Every bit of power I used was executed under the direct command of Chairman Sir. Riya was utterly stunned. Her head was spinning as she asked in a mixture of fear and awe, What? You are the right-hand man of that ruthless, mysterious chairman? Meaning you've been acting as my bodyguard this entire time? Maintaining a deadpan, serious expression, I nodded. Yes, Riya. But please, absolutely no one in the office can find out about this, or my cover will be blown and Chairman Sir will be furious. Riya instantly grabbed both of my hands. The irritation in her eyes had completely vanished, replaced by a profound sense of respect and awe. Ved, forgive me, she whispered. I thought you were incompetent, which is why I piled so much work on you. I had no idea you were taking such massive risks for my sake. My lips are sealed, I won't let anyone suspect a thing. Inside, I was laughing at my luck. My innocent wife had swallowed the lie completely, and now she was bound to care for me even more. Once again, my secret was safe. But the very next afternoon, a storm hit our lives that Riya was completely unprepared for. Without any prior warning, the doors to the main corporate boardroom burst open. In marched Mr. Singhania, one of the oldest and most arrogant shareholders in the corporate sector, flanked by 20 armed bodyguards. Singhania commanded a 35% stake in the company and possessed dangerous ties to the city's most ruthless underworld syndicates. Singhania stormed straight toward Riya, slamming a firearm onto her desk. Riya ji. How dare you completely obliterate the business of our associate, Siddharth? The collapse of Siddharth Empires has cost us a staggering 500 crore rupees. I demand an emergency vote from the board members this instant. You are stripped of your CEO title and fired effective immediately. Ria stood her ground, summoning every ounce of her courage. Mr. Singhania. Siddharth threatened our company, which is why action was taken against him. You cannot simply fire me like this. Singhania erupted into mocking laughter, and his bodyguards instinctively rested their hands on their weapons. I can't fire you? I hold 35% of the shares in this company, and the remaining 20% of the investors will vote exactly as I command out of sheer terror. You have precisely 5 minutes to clear out your cabin, or by tomorrow morning, both you and your pathetic husband will be wiped off the face of this earth. Defeated, Ria crumbled. Around the conference table, the remaining directors were trembling in fear, raising their hands in silent surrender to Singhania. Helpless, Ria locked eyes with me, her gaze silently pleading for me to call the chairman. I offered Ria a subtle, reassuring smile, which instantly put her mind at ease. Gently adjusting my suit jacket, the fake identity of the ordinary intern and the illusion of the shadow assistant officially dissolved. It was time to unleash the corporate monster whose single nod dictated the rhythm of the nation's economy. With absolute calmness, I walked forward, locked the heavy double doors of the boardroom from the inside, and strode directly toward the head of the massive conference table, where the royal seat of the chairman always sat vacant. Singhania snarled at me like a wolf. Hey, you worthless intern. How dare you even step near that chair? That belongs to the absolute owner and chairman of this company. If you even think of sitting there, your limbs will be severed. Get the hell out of here. I completely ignored his outburst. With unyielding confidence and absolute authority, I fixed my razor-sharp gaze on the grand chairman's chair and comfortably sat down. Resting both feet onto the polished edge of the table, I unbuttoned my jacket and spoke in a freezing, predatory tone. Singhania, you just boasted about your 35% stake in your grand plan to fire my wife. But you are overlooking one minor detail. I am the absolute owner of the remaining 65% of the shares. I am the true chairman of this company. And without my explicit permission, you aren't leaving this room alive. The moment that identity dropped, the file slipped right out of Ria's hands, and cold sweat began pouring down the faces of Singhania's armed bodyguards. A freezing silence descended upon the boardroom, as if the blood in everyone's veins had instantly turned to ice. Singhania's bodyguards, who just moments ago were flexing their authority with their hands on their weapons, were now broke out in a cold sweat that dripped onto the floor. They finally realized that they weren't facing a mere intern, but rather the corporate monster whose single nod could sway the economies of entire nations. Singhania's eyes were wide with utter disbelief. His arrogance and his underworld power crumbled into dust in a split second the moment he saw me sitting on the chairman's throne with absolute authority. Stumbling backward, he stammered in a trembling voice, "Why you are the anonymous chairman? This is impossible. You're just a common intern. Ria's pathetic husband." I calmly adjusted the cuffs of my jacket, fixing my razor-sharp, dagger-like gaze on him. Singhania, you just boasted about holding 35% of the shares and threatened to fire my wife. Now, take a good look at your phone screen. Let's see what those shares are actually worth now. At that exact moment, an automatic notification flashed on Singhania's phone. Whatever little color was left in his face completely vanished. Our company's advanced security systems had frozen all of his shares under a case of severe market manipulation. In an instant, his power was reduced to 0%. I rose from the chair. The sound of my every footstep echoed through the boardroom like a ticking time bomb. Stopping right in front of Singhania, I looked deep into his eyes and spoke in a chilling, low tone. In this entire city, from the corporate market to the deepest underworld, no seat exists where you can sit and threaten my wife. Your every breath functions solely on my permission, Singhania. The dam of Singhania's fear broke entirely. He collapsed right at my feet in front of everyone, weeping and howling, "Chairman, sir. Please save me. I made a catastrophic mistake. I will transfer all my shares to Ria G's name this very instant. Please, just spare my life." I signaled my security team. "Get him out of my sight. And ensure the name Singhania is never heard of in the corporate world again." The guards grabbed him by his collar and dragged him out of the boardroom like garbage. The remaining corrupt board directors kept their eyes glued to the floor, not daring to summon the courage to even look in my direction. I glanced around the room and declared, "Meeting adjourned. Leave." Within a single second, the entire boardroom emptied out. Now, only 2 people remained in the massive room, myself and my wife, Ria. Ria stood frozen in her spot, the files having already slipped from her hands. Her eyes held a mixture of shock, bewilderment, and a strange hint of anger. Slowly walking up to me, she grabbed my collar, her voice trembling as she demanded, "Ved, you lied to me. You aren't the right-hand man to any chairman. You are the absolute owner of this company. You are the biggest billionaire in this city." I lowered my head, slipping back into my innocent husband persona, and murmured softly, "I am sorry, Ria. I only wanted your happiness." Ria tightened her grip on my collar in mock anger, though tears well up in her eyes. "Happiness? You bought a 500 crore company from me and didn't even bother to tell me? Instead, you stood in this office every single day taking scoldings from me, working like a beast of burden. Why did you do all this, Ved?" I gently took her hands into mine, softly wiping away her tears, and spoke in a deeply romantic tone. Because I wanted my Ria to be proud of her own hard work. I always wanted to stay behind the scenes and be your shadow. At home, you are my queen, and at the office, you are my boss. I actually enjoy getting scolded by you. Ria's anger melted away in a heartbeat. Throwing her arms around me, she held me tightly, resting her head against my chest as she sobbed softly. You truly are the world's craziest billionaire, Ved. How can anyone love someone this much? I smiled, locking her securely in my embrace. Our office dynamic was about to change completely. The next morning, when I arrived at the office, everyone in the marketing department was standing around in absolute terror. My manager, Sharma, walked up to me and stammered, "See Chairman sir. Please forgive me, I piled so much work on you." I placed a reassuring hand on Sharma's shoulder and laughed. "Oh, come on, Sharma ji, don't worry. I am still your same old intern today. Come on, bring the files quickly, let's get to work." Just then, the door to the CEO's cabin swung open, and Ria stepped out, adopting her commanding tone. "Mr. Ved. Stop wasting time chatting and bring my coffee to my cabin. We have an important deal to sign." I looked at Sharma ji, gave him a playful wink, and called out loudly, "Yes, my CEO boss." And so, friends, the extraordinary story of Ved and Ria ends on a grand and happy note, where Ved remains a ruthless billionaire chairman to the rest of the world, but to his wife, he is still that same innocent and most beloved intern.